Hello, 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 and welcome back to Coach's Corner. It is a Wednesday. It is August 14th, and we are back with a brand new episode of Coach's Corner as we dive into the NFC. But before we do that NFC dive, I do want to touch on, I don't even know if it's news stories, but it's my final predictions for the AFC because I wrote out a playoff list of basically the 7 teams that I do think will end up making the wild card and the just winning their division. So, first things first, we'll start off with the 1 seed. I have the Kansas City Chiefs starting off being the 1 seed. I, praised them enough in my, talk about them where Patrick Mahomes and company just feels like they'll walk through their division, and I can't imagine they'll lose many games. I feel like they're set up better to start off this year than they were last year. Then number 2, I have the Ravens. Just one of those consistent franchises that should, kind of coast through the regular season as they normally do, with a division that I think will, start off competitive and then it will slowly dwindle as the season goes on. Number 3, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know it's a little surprising because of the Houston Texans and their emergence and what their offense could be, but I'm just not drinking the Kool-Aid yet. And although I like them, we'll get to them later, I like the Jaguars to win that division. I just think this will be the emergence of Trevor Lawrence into being the franchise guy for sure. Then fourth, I have the Bills, and that's just me giving benefit of doubt to Josh Allen. I don't love any of these teams in this division, but I do think Buffalo has the best quarterback, and I think is enough of a playmaker that will lead them to victory. And then I have the Texans, who I do think they very narrowly miss out on that, AFC South title, but I like them getting that first wild card and being a problem in the playoffs. Then I have the Jets because if healthy, which is a big if, I like them to just, have a good consistent season, and actually I think they'll beat up on their division, especially the Patriots, the Dolphins. It'll be a weird time for Jets fans as they don't know what to do, but I like them to make the playoffs if Aaron Rodgers and company stay healthy. And then last but not least, Cleveland Browns. And that's a little bit surprising because, their quarterback situation is so crazy and random. But for some reason, their overall roster, I just love it. I like outside of the quarterback, I love their roster. I love everything about it. I think their coaching staff is real strong. It's just if they can piecemeal this quarterback thing together, I think they can get that last wild card spot. And I know what happened to the Bengals, the Steelers, teams like the Chargers, maybe. I just have those teams just slightly out just because I don't think this is quite yet their year. I do think the Bengals just have a disappointing season in general. But with further ado, let's get to the NFC. NFC North, it's a fun division, and I'm glad that I kind of waited to drop this episode or record this episode a day later than when I originally was going to do it, because news kind of came out about one of these teams that we'll get to in a second that is pretty massive. But in general, this division is a fun, young division that has 2 playoff teams coming out of it, the Packers and the Lions. We'll get to them in a moment. And I think they have the possibility to have 2 more playoff teams, playoff caliber teams in it. And, we'll start off with the Chicago Bears because I talked about them before the Hall of Fame game, so I won't dive too much into what the Bears are as a whole. So essentially the gist of what I said was that I think this is a playoff desired team, but I don't think this is a playoff caliber team yet. Now, we've seen Caleb Williams in action. He looked terrific, everything you could kind of really hope for in a preseason game. And I mean, it makes you a lot more optimistic about this team, especially when you look, like I said, in your division at some injuries that are happening. But the Bears faithful, I mean, I think you have a lot of room, for growth, and that should be an optimistic viewpoint from you because you haven't really had that room to grow. You've just been terrible. So, I feel like there's nowhere but up here for this Bears team. And really, I want to talk about this defense because I really touched on the offense in that, like I said, the previous time I talked about them before the Hall of Fame game. But this defense is, I think, just as exciting as the offense because you saw towards the end of last season the kind of culmination of development that Matt Eberflus has put on this team and really kind of elevated that defensive unit because he took over as the defensive coordinator basically because he was trying to save his job. And he did. So, there's questions about the offense, but really you're just banking on Caleb Williams. But the defensive side of the ball, you have a lot of optimism there because you paid a couple of linebackers. They turned out to be pretty good for you. And then your secondary, I love your secondary. The Jalen Johnson, unbelievable player. I think he's going to, be one of those guys that's in the Pro Bowl mix for years to come. They locked him up. Jaquan Brisker is also an excellent safety, I think. And they brought in a veteran in Kevin Byard. And although he might be washed, I think he can help kind of, have that veteran steady presence in the back end that you do need on a lot of young secondary teams, which they also have Tyreek Stevenson and Kyler Gordon, who are also guys that are in their like rookie contracts. So, it's a very young group, but I love the group. And if they can grow and get better, I like that a lot. And then I didn't even mention the guy they traded for last season during the trade deadline, Montez Sweat, who they paid. I mean, it's one of those things. Every level has a guy that I can name that I feel confident about being a quality player for them. And I think if you're going to make a playoff push, Chicago, I think this defense is going to be the leading force. And all eyes will be on that offense, rightfully so. But I think if you look in between the margins, and that's where you win games in the margins, I think it's going to be this defense that is the difference maker here, because you're also in a division, like I said, with two other playoff teams that have quarterbacks like Jordan Love and Jared Goff, who both got paid. And, the Vikings are no slouch with Justin Jefferson. So you're going to have to figure it out. But I like where the Bears are sitting right now. It's one of those things. I think if there's a team that needs to see what they have, I don't want to say they want a trial run here, but kind of figuring out what your foundation is now, I think will be the biggest thing that Chicago does this year, and figuring out which guys to move forward with and which guys to move off of as young guys, because you've been in that top, echelon of drafting guys past couple of years. Now it's the time to, turn it around. Now that you have the quarterback for sure, he's on the rookie contract, and really, I mean, you're gonna have to write it out with him, whether you like it or not. He is your guy. It's time to see, what you have in, stock along with Caleb Williams. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bears do. But regardless, let's move on to the team that had some breaking news come down today. The Minnesota Vikings. They are in an interesting new era because they drafted J.J. McCarthy. But not so fast, my friend. You're not going to see that Michigan man for another year. And that is because he tore his meniscus, went in and did some stuff, found out that he's going to have to miss the year with, trying to rehab this meniscus and figuring it out and going. Basically, they're taking the safe approach and just going to kind of redshirt him this year. And that was probably going to be the plan regardless. But now it is confirmed there's no way J.J. McCarthy is going to play this year. So now it is the Sam Darnold show in Minnesota. And a lot of people will poo-poo on Sam Darnold. I won't be one of those guys just because, frankly, his career has been very up and down, topsy-turvy, because I think you've seen the flashes, but he's been on the New York Jets. He's been on the Carolina Panthers, and that's really when he's played. He was in San Francisco for years, a backup. That really does nothing for me, on film or anything, but Sam Darnold is now getting a full-time opportunity. There is no, looking back because the guy is hurt, so this is one of those moments where you kind of have to seize the opportunity. We'll see if he does that, but I think Sam Darnold really is sitting in a really good position here where, like I said, you have Justin Jefferson. I know they had some injuries today, so who knows? We'll get updated on Jordan Addison, but you have TJ Hawkinson here and Jones. Offensive line has been steady. The Vikings are one of those teams where if they made that sneaky playoff push, in the Hunt graphic, you see the Vikings there, I wouldn't be shocked. But I mean, it would be shocking just because it'd be a Sam Darnold-led team. Like, there's no other real way to put it. The Vikings are basically going to take this year, and in a similar way to the Bears, where they're going to just have to figure out what these young guys are made of and figure out which guys to move forward with. And I think there's less optimism in Minnesota just because I feel like they don't have the foundation that Chicago has, which is weird to say, but Minnesota is kind of, having to recover from a playoff push that they did make with Kirk Cousins and whatnot. They're kind of going through that. And although they do have, the higher highs like Justin Jefferson, and, I just don't think this team is real together right now in winning football games in a winning culture. And like I said, we'll see how this team looks, come opening day or opening season week one, whatever you want to call it. But this is frankly, like I said, it's kind of a redshirt year for the franchise as a whole, and especially JJ McCarthy, who they invested in, and they're not even going to really get to see this year at all. But like I said, I think Sam Darnold has a good opportunity to step up and maybe show he's an NFL quarterback. So we'll see what Minnesota's made of. But like I said, it's not looking great for the old Vikings. But moving on to a team that does have high expectations, the Green Bay Packers. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm a Bears fan, if I'm in this division, I'm not scared of the Packers, but I have a fearful outlook of the future. Looking in my orb here, did they do it again? Did the Green Bay Packers once again draft a generational quarterback that's going to torment the division for a decade plus? And at least the next 4 years, they're going to have a guy. Now, we'll see if he dominates it. And that is Jordan Love. The first year of Jordan Love was a tad bit bumpy. Not great at first. Didn't look like, they were really going to make anything. It's a young team. It was whatever. But then, halfway through the year, Jordan Love picks it up. And then all of a sudden, you see the Green Bay Packers make the playoffs. So all of a sudden, you see them blow out the Dallas Cowboys at home. All of a sudden, you see them go toe-to-toe with the San Francisco 49ers in their building. And it makes you wonder, boy, did the Green Bay Packers do the right thing by drafting a guy, making him sit, and then he comes in and just kind of kills the league? And I think there's a good chance that they did that because Jordan Love got to grow under Aaron Rodgers. He, proved that I think he was a quality guy. I mean, I don't know if he proved enough to get the contract he did, but he proved enough that he was going to be the starter no matter what moving forward. And now he has an opportunity. Like I said, he grew up behind Aaron Rodgers, but now he has a chance to grow up with these receivers who are also young next to him, like Christian Watson, like Dontavian Wicks, like Jaden Reed, like Luke Musgrave, so on and so on. But one of the better things I think the Packers did for him was going out and signing Josh Jacobs to be behind him. And I thought Aaron Jones was fine. I thought he was good enough to keep his job there in Green Bay, but Packers saw a chance to upgrade, I guess, and they went and got Josh Jacobs. Now, I think this is one of those moves that could set a team back more than propel them forward just because Josh Jacobs is older. He has a lot of mileage on him. Running backs on their second contract typically don't live up to the contract. But if you look at what Josh Jacobs has done in the past, it's been a steady production, it's been steady movement, and if he has a shared workload with whoever they have, AJ Dillon, they're in Green Bay, then maybe you can get the most out of him. And then maybe Matt LaFleur looks really good scheming up a run game for him where he didn't have that same, run game offensive coordinator consistency in Las Vegas, Oakland, whichever one. Maybe he's even better. So it's a risky move, but I understand the risk. And if the run game and the pass game kind of get together, that play action game will open up, and that's a really dangerous Packers offense. But we'll see how it goes for them. But their defense is also, I think, just as good, where they have guys like Rashawn Gary on there. Jair Alexander was weird last year, but he's still on the team, so not that bad. But one of the moves I think they made was they invested in the defense as well as the offense was getting safety Xavier McKinney, who was probably very undervalued just because he's a safety. I mean, I think he forms out a very strong secondary for Green Bay. And like I said, a division that has guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, you need all the help you can get. And getting a quality safety in Xavier McKinney helps out that defense. And all of a sudden, I think the Packers formed this offseason into making cohesive football, just in every kind of aspect, complementary football. That's what I meant to say, where everything is just kind of flows together and you really don't have a position group that's bad. I think about my Falcons where the pass rush is terrible. But frankly, the pass rush is going to be a disaster this year for the Falcons. But Green Bay, it feels like they have at least some type of contributor at every type of position level, skill set that you need. They have it. So I really like what the Packers did. I think they can be right there back in the playoff mix. They can win the division, but I wouldn't say that yet because I do think the Detroit Lions have come back with a vengeance. And they were going into last year's kind of, expectations were higher, and they probably blew them out of the water for Lions standards just because they made the NFC Championship. But going into this year, the Lions' expectations are even higher. They're thinking Super Bowl. A lot of media members are picking them for the Super Bowl. And frankly, I don't think that's far off because the Detroit Lions, they're not the plucky old loser Lions anymore. They are the Super Bowl contending Detroit Lions under Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and this Aiden Hutchinson-led defense. The only part that scares me is this team screams hangover. And they didn't make the Super Bowl, so it's not a Super Bowl hangover, but one of those things where you had such a good season, the highs were so high, you added a lot of good pieces this offseason that probably should make you better, but it's translating it on the field, and that's always a big question for teams that have high expectations. So we'll see whether or not they live up to it. I'm a tad bit skeptical. But even then, the floor, I think, for this team is playoffs because, like I said, the offenses stay the same. They kept their offensive coordinator. That was big throughout this, coaching, hiring process. Kept him on board. Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs got hurt, so that also brings me concern. But David Montgomery's right there, which they utilized him a lot last year, especially in the goal line. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta's a year older. Their offensive line is terrific. It's hard not to love this offense. And then you go to the defense. I love what they did on defense by drafting Terrion Arnold. I thought he was the best cornerback in this draft, and he gets taken there. They trade up to get him. I love that pick. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously on the outsides, is their big name, but interior, you look at DJ Reader, who they snagged from the Bengals. He's one of those guys where he's been banged up, but DJ Reader is a glue guy where he just kind of takes up space and he clears it up and opens up for everyone. And I think he was a big reason why that Cincinnati defense was so good on, Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, because DJ Reader is causing havoc in the middle. So they get him. Brian Branch is a year older. Jack Campbell's a year older. There's just a lot to like about this Lions team and what they bring to the table. And like I said, I think the playoffs are the floor here. And this division, I keep looking at it, and it's just one of those things where Vikings, obviously they took a hit, but I liked them before. The Bears, I like what they have going on. The Packers and the Lions, I just told you, I think both of those are playoff teams, playoff caliber teams. And the NFC has been weak for a couple of years. It's much weaker than the AFC just in general. But you look at a division like this, and I think you can see the conference trending upwards because the NFC North was dominated by the Packers for so long, but these teams I think are finally starting to catch up, and maybe we have a tough division here with the Bears and Lions being right back in the mix for division titles. Like I know it's division titles don't mean a lot, but it's one of those things where you do have to look at it and say, hey, you have to win your division first before you can get into anything. And so I think this is the first time in a while where we have an actual chance for every team to kind of be in the mix for an NFC North type of race. So, just to say, really, this division is exciting. To finish it off, the division is a good division. We'll see how it turns out, but we'll continue on through the NFC tomorrow or whenever the next show comes out. I apologize, but we'll get into these other divisions like the NFC East, the NFC West, and the NFC South with my Atlanta Falcons. But we must venture our way into the college football world. Now, we're going to get back into the Coach's Corner roots, and I don't know if it's next week, when it's prior to week 0, but college football is right around the corner. We are a week away maybe from the first college football action starting. Boy, I cannot wait. You know what that means. I'll be breaking out the notepad. I'll be writing down my bets, giving the people winners, and hopefully we'll go over 500 for the 3rd straight year. So that would be huge. But we have an AP poll to look at. We have numbers next to teams, and we have the Georgia Bulldogs on top as the number 1 team. Now, scary because I feel like it's always kind of a, ranking teams highly in the AP poll does nothing for you on the field. Nothing, not a thing. There's not a USC in 2009, I believe, with Matt Barkley was ranked the number 1 team in the country. I'm pretty sure they finished the year unranked. So these really don't matter. But looking at some of these teams, Georgia, it goes like this: top five: Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. Probably the most fair top five you can give because Ohio State is loaded. I mean, their defense is terrific. Will Howard, we'll see how he does. Oregon's getting a lot of hype this year. I'm a little bit skeptical just because I don't know if I believe in Dylan Gabriel. But I mean, running through the Big Ten in year one, I wouldn't be shocked. They run into Ohio State, so that'll be intriguing. Texas takes a hit here mainly for me because they lost both of their starting running backs to season-ending injuries. That's a big part of what Texas does well is that dual I talked about with the Packers. Pass game and the run game complement each other very well. Texas has been that type of school for the past couple of years. Losing both of those guys on day one is very tough, or before day one. So we'll see how that goes. Alabama, 5. I'm very skeptical on Alabama just because I don't believe in Jalen Milroe, but we'll see. And then some notable teams. Ole Miss is after there. Notre Dame is in the top 10 here. Penn State, Michigan, Florida State is here in the top 10. And then it's kind of like pick your poison with teams that are weird here in the top 25. Clemson, just by name recognition, they're 14th. Tennessee, the expectations are very high because they're 15th here. And I mean, I like Nico Iamaleava, I believe is how you say his name, but without seeing him play a snap, them being 15th feels a tad bit crazy. Oklahoma, they're starting SEC play, their first year in the SEC. Jackson Arnold being the starting quarterback, we'll see how he does. Then the Big 12 contenders, Utah is here to 12, and then Oklahoma State and Kansas State are next to each other. I kind of love Kansas State to win the Big 12 if I had to place a future on a team. I mean, I know they're probably top 3 in odds or whatever, or they're probably up there, but Kansas State, I feel like will have a really, really good year. Then you have your teams that are kind of outsiders that maybe they'll be good, but maybe they could be disasters. Miami, Florida has been one of those teams for years now, but Mario Cristobal is probably the hottest chair in the country. Oh, he might not be the hottest chair in the state because Billy Napier is there, but Mario Cristobal feels like he has one more year. If it goes poorly, he's done. But regardless, then you have Texas A&M, then Arizona, who I really like, and Kansas, who I also really like. So quality teams here in the Big 12. We'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, like I said, this stuff doesn't matter, but it's fun to see because that means we're this much closer to college football, and we're this much closer to me giving out winners. Make sure you check them out on. I don't know if it's going to be next. I'm trying to remember when that first college football game is because I know it's Georgia Tech and Florida State's one of those first week 0 games, but I'm pumped for it. I'm going to look at the board, look at my website here sooner than later, but buddy, we're right around the corner and I cannot wait. So we'll get into that next week, I believe. So either way, that'll do it for me here on Coach's Corner. I don't have a ton of topics here. I wanted to keep on keeping on with the previews, and like I said, we'll continue that in the following shows. But until then, make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff for the podcast, YouTube, wherever you like to find the show. And I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.